The Dr. Taz Show, the podcast. Dr. Taz, Superwoman Wellness. Here's Dr. Taz.
Welcome back to the Dr. Taz Show, where every episode is your opportunity to write your own personal prescription for power. That's right. This is your Power RX. And joining me today is Ora Nadrich. Ora is the founder and president of the Institute for Transformational Thinking and the author of Says Who: How One Simple Question Can Change the Way You Think Forever. Ora specializes in transformational thinking, self-discovery, and mentoring new coaches as they develop their careers. Welcome to the show, Ora.
Hi, Dr. Tess. Thank you for having me.
We are thrilled to have you here, and it's probably truth serum time. We're going to spend some time talking about negative thoughts and how they appear, how they surface, what we can do about them. And as we were joking, I don't think I know anybody who has not battled the issue with having negative thoughts and trying to reprogram and reframe them. And I'm super passionate about this issue, Ora, because, I did a TED Talk recently, which talked about how science even is sort of intimating that these negative thoughts are getting programmed. We're getting programmed. It's being held in our mitochondrial DNA. We're passing it down to our ancestors. So we're perpetuating cycles and cycles of negative thoughts, and it has to stop. So I'm so excited to have you on the show today to talk about this. Talk to us about our thoughts and how we can master our own internal dialogue, and where do these negative thoughts begin and end, and what can we do about them?
Well, first of all, we do all have negative thoughts. It's part of the thinking process. And we think between, 40 to 70,000 thoughts a day. And quite a few of them are negative, fear-based, and basically not very useful for us. And what I say about that is that we accept those thoughts readily, and we can do something about it. And you said in your introduction of that to stop the negative thoughts, which is something that we can do effectively. And I like to use the analogy of navigating the waters like an ocean. Sometimes the waters are very choppy and turbulent, and sometimes they're calm. And so is the thinking mind. And what we need to do is know how to really transform, which is a word that I use, transform your thoughts so that they can be useful for you. And that is something that I really subscribe to. People will say, oh, well, how do I just get rid of my negative thoughts? And I say, they will come up. That is inevitable. But if we have really our skill sets in place and we know what to do when a negative thought comes up, we can change that thought into something, again, that's useful, productive, constructive, and ultimately life-affirming for us.
And how empowering that is, because again, the power of a negative thought is just as powerful as the power of positive thinking that we've all, heard about and read about so much. How do we create this transformational process? Like you've said, given any number of thoughts we have in any given day, so many of them can be fear-based, can be based on worry, can be poor self-esteem based. How do we make this transformation? What are some of the most common tools that you've noticed work, in different types of people? Sometimes people who've heard negative thoughts not just have negative thoughts, but that they've had negative, sort of negativity spewed at them their entire life. What is the process? Where does somebody start in trying to create this transformation?
And that's so true. So many of those negative thoughts really began long ago in our lives, oftentimes in childhood. Things that we heard, things that were told to us, whether it was by a parent, a teacher, an authority figure, or even the bully on the schoolyard. I think everybody can remember the first time something was said to them about them that, either created that fight or flight freeze feeling, or they felt suddenly that they weren't good enough. And I work with a lot of clients that have carried over some of those thoughts, which can turn into our core beliefs, into adulthood. And that's what we really want to work on, because, I feel that negative thoughts just keep creating more negative thoughts. And if not addressed and looked at, then they just stay that way, and then they can become, again, part of our core beliefs, and then they can grow. And so I have, systems, techniques, and methods that I've created from my book, Says Who, first and foremost, the Says Who method, which is a questioning method. It's a questioning method to question those negative thoughts if or when they come up, to find out if they're even real or not. Again, we accept the things that we tell ourselves so readily without questioning whether or not that is, positive, or is it negative? Is it useful, or is it not? Is it harmful? Our thoughts can be so harmful, not only hurtful, but harmful. And, the thing that amazes me is that we accept the things that we tell ourselves more readily than we would if someone else said that to us. We would defend ourselves if someone said terrible things to us about us, hopefully, but we accept them for our, when we tell those things to ourselves. So by questioning, which is really something that I highly recommend, is to challenge and question a negative thought that we have. Is this thought even real? Is this thought useful? I have 7 questions that are the Says Who method that right away challenge a negative or fear-based thought if or when it comes up. And I think that unless you do that, you're just ready to accept it.
Hi, it's Dr. Taz here, and if you've been listening to the show, you must know that I love tea. I walk around with it. I drink it all day long, so I couldn't be more excited to bring you Teamy Blends. Teamy Tea is an honest company that provides the best quality loose leaf tea to all of us, providing us the results we want. Here's what I've been doing. I've been using the Teamy Skinny and the Teamy Colon on their 30-day detox program and seeing some really amazing results. I'm seeing everything from my metabolism a little bit better, burning that pesky stored fat, really suppressing those afternoon and evening appetites and cravings that you can have at the end of a workday. My energy's through the roof and my bloating is gone. I feel amazing and I want this for you too. Check out Teamy Tea and check out this 30-day detox. You can order your 30-day detox today and save 15% on your entire order at teamyblends.com. That's TEAMI blends.com using the code WHOLEHEALTH at checkout. And I think so many people in so many different situations will accept a negative thought and make it their reality, right? I mean, it could be as simple as, I'm not thin enough, and then that becomes your reality, and every decision of that day is centered around the fact that you're not thin enough. Or it could be
Absolutely.
that, you're not smart enough, and then every decision for the next 10 years is because you're not smart enough. I hear that from people all the time. So the first step is to challenge. What's the second step? And I love how you're saying, and I think this could apply to children as well, as, teaching them as well. The minute they have a bad thought about themselves, you say back, Says Who. You would do that for a buddy or a friend. Why aren't you doing it for yourself? Is Says
Absolutely,
Who like the best dialogue?
Right.
Is that the best dialogue?
Yes, we do.
And where would you go after that?
We do need to stand up for ourselves. That's something that children really need to be taught early. I think, people have said to me, this should be taught in schools, and hopefully one day it will, in that you need to be able to stand up for yourself immediately. And, I used Says Who in my day. What was that saying? Sticks and stones may break my bones, but names can never harm me. There's certain things that we grew up with, but they weren't very effective, obviously, because how much advocating and how much sticking up for ourselves did we really learn, to know that we are the master of our own mind and that we can determine which thoughts really are useful and helpful for us and which ones are not. And that does start at a very young age. So when I say question, in my book, I talk about, first and foremost, being the observer. As a mindfulness teacher, I teach about being present, and it's called present moment awareness, being in the present moment so that if or when a negative thought or fear-based thought or limited thought comes up, whether you're telling it to yourself or someone is saying it to you, to use, the child as an example, that you immediately observe how you feel, that you can have a sense of, that thought doesn't make me feel very good. So what do I want to do about that? That's when you begin the questioning of that thought. And by using these 7 questions that I have, the Says Who method, you can literally go and ask yourself every question, and what you recognize and find out pretty quickly that you have accepted a thought that, some of the says do questions are, that you don't like the thought, that it doesn't make you feel better, that it isn't useful for you. Do you know, like, how does it work for you, essentially? So when you start to answer those questions and realize that it isn't making you feel better, it doesn't work for you, it feels like it has power over you, you can really answer it by, saying, no, I don't really like this thought and it isn't working for me and I'm ready to change it. So observing, again, how that thought is making you feel, go into immediately questioning it so that you can then begin to change it. And I also have in the book something called the release and replace technique, which has become quite popular with people because we have a choice in the matter. We can decide to literally replace a thought, first and foremost by releasing it, being willing to release it, which means letting it go, and replacing it with its positive counterpart.
That's amazing. And again, and this is something I felt very passionately about too, is that we have this power. It's in our hand. It's again, acknowledging it, owning it, challenging it, that are sometimes the first steps. But walk us through the release, because I think with more awareness over time, people realize they're having negative thoughts, but they still feel handicapped. And for many people, if you sit around and you could get inside and walk around their minds, the negative thoughts keep coming because they're so ingrained from earlier experiences and they haven't been released. What is that process of release? I would love for everybody listening today to be able to walk away with, okay, I'm going to challenge myself. I'm going to say says who every time I hear something negative, and then I'm going to release it. And what is that process of release? I would love to know as well.
Well, first I want to say that this sounds pretty easy, and it is, but you have to commit to it. You have to practice it. We have to discipline our mind. We can't let it run ragged. And do you know what I say in my book is you are the creator and master of your internal dialogue, which ultimately creates your reality. You said something earlier, Dr. Taz, in that we need to connect the dots. Thoughts create feelings, create emotions, create behavior, create actions, create reality.
Yes.
This is how it all comes down the pike. So let's just say a negative thought comes up for you and it's disturbing or it's upsetting, and what happens is we start to immediately feel a emotion around it, and I want people to understand that oftentimes somebody just reached out to me last night, funnily enough, on Instagram, which is not a place where you usually start a conversation, but they said they were feeling very sad. And I said to them, there is always a thought behind our emotion. We just need to locate that thought. We need to know what it is. So for a lot of people, what they feel is taken over by, yes, it can be a thought that's repeating over and over again in their mind, and that's creating more negative thoughts. And then you start to go into that downward spiral, and you're in what I call reactive mode as opposed to, again, observation mode. When you have a thought that comes up that is making you feel uncomfortable, immediately recognize it, identify it, and be able to develop healthy self-talk, inner self-talk. I was just helping somebody also yesterday who has a fear of flying, how to prepare themselves with positive self-talk before they got on the plane, so that you can begin to say, wow, I'm feeling really nervous. I'm feeling anxious. I'm feeling angry. Talk to yourself when you're feeling that emotion, and then you begin to locate the thought that's around it. An example of, let's say, anxious with this person that I worked with yesterday who has a fear of flying, to be able to say, I'm afraid to get on that airplane. Okay, that's real for a lot of people. Those thoughts and those feelings are real. Now you want to begin to work with it. You want to begin to be able to start to talk to yourself like you would talk to a child that's in crisis. We all have that inside us, where if you saw somebody in crisis, be it a child, a loved one, or even a stranger, would you go up and match their, anxiety? No, you would say, let's help you calm down. And what can we do to do that? You're going to be okay. You're going to get through this. It's all going to work out fine. That's replacing a negative thought, which could be, oh my God, everything's falling apart. Oh my God, I'm this. I'm that, this is terrible. Or to go back to what you said, I'm not thin enough, I'm not smart enough, I'm not this or that enough. We have to counter that by saying, you know what, I am good enough, I am smart enough, or I'll do better today so that I can be better at my diet.
Mm-hmm.
We don't reinforce that negative self-talk with positive self-talk. So it's a system that you need to really put into place. It's like your toolkit. I like to consider this like a
Yeah,
toolkit,
that's what I use, these toolkits.
right? And we default. And you talked earlier, as the neuroscience, studies are proving that we can actually rewire our brains, and that when
Mm-hmm.
we do start to feed ourselves more positive thoughts, we then default. We create new neural pathways that we don't default to old patterns of thinking that we may have developed early on in childhood. We can actually change it. And I know change is not the easiest thing for us to accept and even believe about ourselves, but everybody can change. We all can change starting today, and that means changing the way we think.
Now, let's say we put these tools into action. We, say says who, when we hear a negative thought. We challenge that thought. We reassure ourselves. We sort of calm ourselves down and nurture ourselves to a certain extent, just as we would our friend, our husband, spouse, child, whoever else may be close to us. And we begin the process of releasing that thought. Is there any data or research on going through this process, doing it over and over again, and what sort of tangible results happen after X amount of time? Like, for example, doing this for 3 weeks, very consciously does this. I'm curious as to, because for many people, they'll do it for a day and then they're done. And then we go back to what we know and we're back to thinking a certain way. So if we wanted to challenge folks out there today and say, do this for this amount of time, you will see a difference, what would you say to them?
Well, the different theories and or studies of what does it take, 21 days to develop,
Mm-hmm.
it. I say consistency is best, and I say you commit to your thoughts, and your thoughts will commit to you in a positive way. The thing that I see the most that has really always, been so wonderful for me to see with clients and people that I've taught is they'll say to me, those that commit to this and those that, don't just do it once and then think a miracle is going to happen. Because if you want to get into shape, you can't just exercise once. It's not going to happen. We'd all like to think that there's a quick fix, but there isn't. We have to really commit to these disciplines. This is a discipline of the thinking mind, but the tremendous benefits that you get out of it, and what I hear time and time again, people will say to me, wow, you know what? I have recognized that I just don't have as many negative thoughts as I used to. I hear that all the time. Say, I used to be such a negative thinker, and you know what? I don't think that about myself anymore. I have come to see how I can literally change my thoughts so that I have less negative thoughts. Does a negative thought come up? Yes, it will. But you now know how to catch it quicker, and you know how to recognize it, identify it, and then work with it. And what you see is that you start to effectively change your thoughts so that they become less negative. And I even like to encourage people at the end of their day, when they start to put this into practice, it works. I created this method and I use it till today. And I constantly use it, and I have fun with it. People will ask me, I'm interviewed, and I've written a lot of articles, and they'll say, "Oh, I bet you don't have any negative thoughts," and I laugh. And I say, of course I do. Again, it's part of the thinking mind. Maybe it's part of the. I don't know all the parts of the brain. I'm not a doctor or a scientist, but I know about the amygdala, or I know that there are parts of the brain that are left over from when we were hunters and gatherers, and we had to go out and hunt for food. So we had the ability to, have the fight or flight if a saber-toothed tiger jumped out and wanted to attack us. We don't have to live like that. We don't have to live in a constant state, a heightened state of fear and worry all the time. Some people live in that state all the time, and it's torturing for them. So I like to help people to know how to be more powerful and feel more powerful over their own thinking mind. And know that
Is
they're in the
there
driver's
a risk? I was just sorry to interrupt you, but is there a risk of almost being too Pollyanna-ish, that you're too happy and you're too positive all the time and you're not realistic and you don't know the boundaries between true danger ahead versus a negative thought versus just being happy all the time?
That's a really good question, Dr. Taz, because I didn't write a book about, oh, hey, let's just be positive all the time and everything is just so positive. Although I subscribe to the law of attraction, I think it's great. I think the more positive you think, the more positive your life will be. Of course, logic prevails, but we have to understand that we are going to have thoughts that are going to come in. There are genuine things to be concerned and worried about, but worrying unnecessarily. I have a chapter in my book called The Something to Worry About Thoughts. Again, that is going to come up. That's real. There are situations that are going to happen in our lives that are going to warrant worry. But, I also talk about in that chapter, let's just say you have a situation that is very concerning and serious, and you have worried thoughts. Let's just say you or a loved one is in a type of a crisis or a health crisis. Instead of worrying incessantly, you could go into prayer or meditation and, start to visualize that person or yourself in a more healthy, healing way. Again, the studies are showing that we can effectively use our thinking mind in ways that can help promote healing, So, yes, and also what I want to say is that it's okay to have a gray day. We're going to have days where we're not so happy and cheerful and want to, skip, on the street, enjoy. That's not realistic. I want people to be able to understand that we're going to experience the entire spectrum of thoughts and feelings. But I'm talking specifically about how our thoughts just take us over and can be so harmful and hurtful and for some people quite destructive. That's what we want to watch for. That's what we want to work with.
Wow, this has been amazing information for anybody out there who's struggling with negative thoughts. And actually, I have one more question because I am a parent and I know so much of my negativity and my negative thinking came from childhood. So for those of us out there that are parents and we're trying to, again, discipline, empower, raise responsible human beings for the next generation and not make the mistake of our previous probably generation of parents where everything was fine and everybody got a trophy and sort of raised this entitled generation, so to speak, or a perceived entitled, I should say, generation, so to speak. What is the balance? How do we create conscious kids that take criticism, that understand discipline, but at the same time are empowered and have good self-esteem to sort of have a decent balance? Is there a way to do that? Is there a way to navigate that as a parent?
I think that the more conscious we are and the more, I'm a mother as well, I have 2 boys, and the more we speak to our children in a way that is really constructive, productive, and useful for them, and that also might mean to be able to tell them things that they might need to hear, not in a hurtful way, but in a helpful way, so that they can know how to move through their own thinking mind and use it constructively. You said the way in which we have parented. I do have a question in the Says Who method. Have I heard someone say this thought before? Because a lot of the ways in which we can parent is based on the way our parents parented us. And we're very fortunate for a generation that can really change that and be able to communicate with our children in a mindful way, to be so present with them that we can speak to them so that they can start to cultivate, as I said, healthy thinking habits for themselves. And, if they feel that they're entitled or, that feel that everything is always going to go their way, we can help them navigate those waters so that they can be good problem solvers and they can know how to make good choices for themselves. But we're really passing down the legacy of helping them work with their own thoughts effectively. And to me, that's the best thing that we can do to to develop their minds.
Oh my goodness. I honestly firmly believe that that's the next crisis in medicine is managing your mind, managing your brain, uh, providing support to that brain with different toolboxes and different toolkits. And I think our children we're seeing today are having the biggest challenges with that, whether it's anxiety, depression, ADHD, so many of these different conditions that come up for them. I think this is a great resource for everybody out there, whether you're worried about yourself, or even you've just grown up thinking negatively and it's sort of become a part of your being. This is maybe a really good place to start. The book is Says Who: How One Simple Question Can Change the Way You Think Forever. Ora Nadrich is with me today. Ora, if people wanted to connect with you and learn more about this and really develop that toolkit further, what's the best way for them to do that?
They can go to my website, oranadrich.com. I have so much on that website, and I've written a lot of articles about, positive thinking and the ways in which we can develop more healthy, constructive, wholesome thinking, mind. So go to my website. I'm also on social media. I'm on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn, and all of the social media handles are Ora Nadrich.
Fantastic. Well, this has been an amazing episode. Thanks for joining us today. Remember, every episode is your opportunity to write your own personal prescription for power. Today's lesson, let's work on our negative thinking. We can do this together. And until then, we'll see you next time.